Yes, we are back. Night welcomes horror here on Horror Free TV. And guess what? We get to talk about found footage film with Radar, who is not a big fan of found footage horror,
I'm not.
but he is the one that brought this one up. So obviously he did watch found footage. And if he brought this one up, definitely was for a reason. So Radar, you ready to stay up late night with this ragtag group of, let's be honest, fuck ups?
Yeah. Yes, like across the board. Like all of the people in this also are just like the characters are just the definition of like losers, I feel like across the board. I think that just makes them more endearing. This film is so incredible because it takes two things I don't like. I don't like late night talk shows and I don't like found footage. And yet I adored this film.
So, if you haven't watched this film is about a struggling late night host who took some time off with the untimely death of his wife to come back, and just happens to come back during Sweets Week, where he decides, well, what better way to top Johnny Carson than let's just go mess with the devil, and let's see if we could bring the devil to the TV. So, Radar, this 2023 film is about wanting to be powerful, wanting to have the fame. So we follow Jack Delroy, played by David. That small kid, I messed up his name. I don't know how to say his name. Is David? If you know who he is, if you watch the film,
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep struggling to say the name, so I figure you know who he is. Watch the film.
Malchin, maybe?
Yeah, I can't even say that name. But here's a question I have for you as a horror author. How far would you go or sacrifice to be number one like Jack Delroy?
I because I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it. So I will say that his sacrifice, I would not be making that one. That one's a little too far. I'll give up a kidney.
I'll give up a toe.
Which toe though?
Probably a small one. Nobody ever knows.
Little
it's
pinky.
A small one. Little pinky. Everybody always knows is the big toe. Nobody ever looks at the pinky. So,
that's fair. What if you have to give up both pinkies though? Because normally they want a big toe. Would you give up both pinkies?
Yeah, because nobody really looks at pinkies. I mean, pinkies are usually trying to hide under your other toe anyway, so it's not like they're really staying out there, But yeah, I agree with you. I don't. It's a little too far as my taste goes. Yeah, it's just.
And these kind of Faustian deals, anyways. I feel like maybe Delroy signed on, but obviously it didn't clarify like what he would be sacrificing.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it because you can, at least as you go through the film, you can tell there's obvious remorse for it and sadness for what he did. Whether that's he just shat the bed and did something that he now regrets, or he just didn't know, is up to interpretation. But I feel like he probably didn't know what he was sacrificing in total.
I'll be honest with you, for them to pull off what they pull off for his sacrifice, yeah, I'm not sure I would hang out with those type of people.
Yeah.
Because the whole beginning portion of this film is talking about the occult, talking about this place called the Grove, which, if you know me, as far as the found footage horror goes, I love the documentary style of found footage because it makes it more. I mean, found footage horror for me, what makes it unique is the fact that it's through the eyes of the person holding the camera, which you feel like you're the one holding the camera that while you're watching these films. But I always liked the documentary style because they always give you a story to pull you in. And then when they pull you in, you start figuring out that this Jack Delroy definitely had the potential to be number one. He was insatisfied as number two. Would do anything for that top spot. Obviously, if you're gonna, do a show and bring the devil on Halloween, then you really want to win those sweepstakes, which It's just crazy enough. But what I also like about this film is you have different sets of characters, and two of the characters we meet in the beginning of this film is a guy who is, I mean, you could say he's like a myth buster, Carmichael.
Right.
And his rival is Christo, which you kind of wonder if Christo is just one of these guys who he is not really a psychic or a medium, but definitely gets the money for it. But certain things happen in this film that you're like, all right, is this guy really bullshit or is he not bullshit at all? But like, what did you like between the dynamic between those two characters?
For me, I feel like more so from with Christu and Carmichael, it's more like Carmichael with everyone else. Cause it's like, yeah, you could be a mythbuster in this, but all these things, but he's just a total jerk to like everyone else. And no one likes him. You could tell no one likes this dude. They're like, oh God, it's Carmichael. He clearly has a reputation, a very infamous one. And it's like, yeah, you want someone to go around myth busting people so they don't, take advantage of others. But at the same time, it's like there's a way to go about doing it. What did you think, though, specifically between Christu and Carmichael's relationship for, as brief as it is?
That's the only thing I wish it was a little longer because it was very
Mhm.
brief. But I like the whole when we meet Christo first, how he's talking to that one guy, trying to get the name, and he's like, "She moved on. Your wife, she moved on. Yeah, she divorced me. She left. She's like," and they're joking at him the whole time. And then that's where he goes to that mother daughter combo, which
Yeah.
later you found out that it wasn't it wasn't him being psychic. It was they got information out of the people, but Carmichael, I like that he lasted long because he was such a prick. And the whole thing, I have $1 million. I could say, I could, you have to prove me wrong. And the whole thing was like, all right, let's try to get somebody to win the $500,000. That way we
Right.
could shut this guy up. But I like the way he was. I like his character because, I mean, this is like 60s, 70s. And the
70s,
fact
yeah.
Yeah, the fact that you have, I mean, the whole thing was the world's in chaos. People are dying. Just horror of this, horror of that, and all right, here's a late night show that's gonna bring on the devil. So it's like how everything worked out, but the fact that Carmichael's whole purpose was to prove everybody wrong. At the same time, we talked about last month about this character, Stefan, and in the film the rule of Jenny Penn,
Yeah.
how he was on a pedestal above everybody. And here you have Carmichael. I could prove everybody wrong, which we'll talk
Right.
about the hypnotizing that he did later in the film. But yeah, it's just like I like the characters. I wish that Christoph would last a little longer. Especially when he threw up that black stuff and Carmichael. Oh, that's regurgitation. You could do it.
Pretty
It
wild.
wasn't the fact that it was like black puke and stuff like tar like, but yeah, you get him, like completely just write it off. Oh, there's many ways we could do that, but as the film starts going, being that Jack is so anxious to be number one, willing to do anything.
Right.
Now Gus was his right hand, and I felt bad for Gus throughout this whole
Man,
fucking
Gus
film.
deserved better.
Poor guy from the beginning of the movie, you could tell he was the guy who was always getting shit on by Jack, always basically the punching bag of the whole crew. But he is concerned about what Jack wants to do when it becomes, the crew and staff find out that listen, you have this girl named Lily who potentially is possessed, and we're gonna bring her out stage, and we're gonna try to bring the whatever is. I think he was called Mr. Wiggles.
Yeah. Bring
We're
that
gonna
out of her.
yeah, Mr. Wiggles out of her. But like, at what point do you think that Jack should start listening to Gus about how far to push Lily?
I mean, Gus was the voice of reason, like across the board, the only voice of reason. Because again, Carmichael's just the voice of an asshole. But I would have, in a regular situation, I probably would have listened to Gus at that first commercial break. because like Lily was from like a satanic cult and stuff. I feel like if you want ratings, you could just talk about the satanic cult. You know, you could pry into her experiences there and not have her try to bring out like some possessed thing. But there's the other aspect of, that Jack not only wants those, to win sweeps, he also kind of wants to be able to communicate and see if there's a way he can fix what he messed up. So I feel like that's part of what's driving him. Actually, what did you think about the choice of the cutaways randomly when they go to commercial break and the footage they use in between those parts?
Listen, if I have a guest and she turns around and sounds like my deceased wife, I'm done.
It's over.
I'm done. It's over. I mean, the girl Lily turns around and sounds just like his wife. Always beautiful. What? Listen, look, girl got to go.
Get her out of here.
Gus, you're right. But I like the whole dynamic between that because we watch a lot of you watch shows and you always want to know what happens behind the scenes, and the fact that we got that behind the scenes stuff. We got the concerns of the majority of the staff and crew that didn't think this was the right thing to do. And the fact that Gus later on pays the price, and he was right the whole time. Nobody listened to him because I forgot the name of the boss. Basically, told him shut the f up and just go do your job. And you felt bad for Gus, like, oh man, poor dude, man. And then the fact that he's used as a prop by Carmichael.
Oh man, yeah.
Hey, you want to talk about that? What do you think about that scene that being used as the prop?
I love the special effects that they do in this movie, and I loved how they just for a brief moment they went full on body horror with that, with all the worms and stuff. What did you think about it? What do you think, it was too over the top, or was it just right?
I think it was just right. I think what I also liked is that other element they put in where they go and they review the footage.
Yeah.
And they show the footage of they show the footage of when Gus is hypnotized, how even though they saw all the worms coming out, but when they actually show that the video, none of that comes out. But then Lily, Mr. Wiggles says, well, why don't you play our video too so you can see? And then you have that scene where they're playing the video, and in the video when Jack tells him, all right, go slow, stop there, there's his wife, the spirit, her hand on her shoulder. And what does Carmichael say? Oh, Jesus, man. You're going to do this? And just starts berating him, saying you're doing everything possible for ratings, even bringing your dead wife back.
Yeah.
Which is, you're like, oh, man, come on, dude. And then, at that point, you're like, wow, this dude's really doing anything for sweeps. But I like the fact that they did that. They showed, all right, here's somebody getting hypnotized, as well as the audience. But then here's the actual video too of Lily, and it's genuine.
Yeah.
I mean, even like after Lily gets smacked. I forgot her name was Janice. Was Janice? I think it was Janice.
Yeah.
Her psychologist, her
like
doctor.
Trainer.
Yeah, Lily smacks her while they're walking away. Here's Carmichael standing there by the chair. I'm looking how they did the whole thing for the chair to be levitating.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I liked that whole sequence. Like I feel bad for Gus because, when he found out that Crystal passed, he kind of snapped at Carmichael about it, and Carmichael was like, "What? I thought he was joking. No, he's dead." It's just like if they would have stopped sooner, maybe, Kristoff went. I think Kristoff would have died anyways because he died before Lily came on stage.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, because he died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Yeah, so. Yeah.
Which imagine if he would have been on stage if Lily would have came out. That would have been interesting.
That would have been something. And it's like I you can make the argument for Christo. Like, do you think he deserved what happened?
No. No. Carmichael, yes. Christo, no. Because, when he felt Minnie, and you see how it literally took a toll on him.
Yeah.
He had to be helped to the chair. and then he's like, here, and the whole time, Jack thinks like he played this, he was just acting the whole time, and this dude just sitting there like, what the fuck was that? And everybody thinks he was acting. It was all that shit really did happen. But like for me, it's like I do love that dynamic of how far do you want to go when you have people who are close to you telling you to stop?
Right.
Because even Janice wanted to stop, and he goes, listen to the crowd. The crowd's not wrong. It's what they want. And the fact that he went against everything just to make sure he gets this freaking rating. But that leads to what we end up finding out. Now, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. So, I mean, what did you think about the reveal of what Jack did when it came to Madeline or Minnie,
right,
to get to where he's at?
And this is your final warning, y'all. This is spoiler territory for sure. And I think there's something in this movie that you and I both love, and that is ambiguity. Because they don't come out and say it ever, but it's very heavily implied. He made this Faustian deal, and the sacrifice was his wife. And that in itself is brutal. And they do such a good job of because they don't even bring in the element of there being a Faustian deal, kind of, until you get to when the supernatural stuff starts happening at about 40 to 50 minutes into the film, like the halfway point. So before that, they bring up his wife and, her sudden illness and dying. And there's you can see this genuine love that he has for his wife. And so this is such a good job of setting it no, he did really love his wife. He did. He cared about her. He did this though, and what do you think? Do you think that he did it on purpose? The sacrifice was on purpose, or do you think he was tricked into it?
Actually, I think he did it because he didn't truly believe in it.
Oh, interesting.
I think he's. I mean, they were talking about how this grove is all the rich and powerful, how they go, and then they do, arcane stuff, and
right.
So I honestly, I don't think he believed that they were capable of doing anything. Because not for nothing, for your wife to get cancer, what exactly did they do to give her cancer? I mean, I know they said that she got lung cancer, but she wasn't a smoker. So how was it that they were able to? So there's a lot of stuff that I think that elements that he probably truly didn't believe could happen. He's part of this group because he's rich and powerful.
Right. He just wants to kind of rub shoulders with them and get in.
Yeah, he wants to be number one, and if it takes joining this group to be number one, that's what it takes for him. But I don't think he really thought that it probably was going to happen sooner than it did.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it happened, and then he went on this whole streak where he was doing well, and then when she passed away, I think what they said the highest rated show he had, the episode he had, was when she came on, and she was basically through an oxygen mask,
right,
breathing. But I honestly don't think he thought they were going to go to that extreme, or he was like, all right, yeah, I'll make a deal, I'll sacrifice my wife, and in his mind's like, ain't gonna happen, but eventually it did happen. But the way they revealed it, I thought was pretty good. I mean, what did you think about the way it was totally revealed?
I think, again, because they don't totally reveal it, but I think they did a great job of pulling off hiding enough from the audience to go did he do something? Did he make this deal? And I think it's also a little ingenious too, more so of the film, of how the elements of the supernatural are not you still doubt it until the very end. And also just like you kind of brought up, there's enough to where it's this seems kind of fishy. His wife getting lung cancer, even though she wasn't a smoker. Well, hey, people do get lung cancer and they don't smoke. So, okay, maybe feasible. Him kind of blowing up a little bit and signing with that that, that studio kind of having that big jump in sales around the time he's with this group, the Grove. Again, it could all be coincidence, so there's like all these little factors, I think brilliantly, of like, it could be supernatural or it could very well not be. And there's another film from 1988 called Pin, and that one's more of a psychological film, but it reminds me a lot of that one, because that film does an incredible job of going like, is there something supernatural or is it all like just psychologically based?
Yeah.
And so I love how it walks that line pretty darn well.
For me, the only thing I wondered was when they're laying in the, they had that scene where she's in the bed and they're, she's saying how he sacrificed her,
Mm-hmm.
For the fame and stuff. And then he stabs her with the knife. I'm like, did he like maybe not stab her,
Right.
maybe mercy kill her? Because they never really mentioned that, but the way she says it, that you have to do it, and you're like, oh, okay, does this dude like kill his wife as well? And then,
Right.
I mean, the fact that Carmichael and Gus were pissed off that he was bringing up that wife.
Yeah.
That seemed very genuine too.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's interesting to see it because it seemed like everyone liked his wife, so it even had like reverence for her. So it's very interesting, like a very good, well executed kind of film, like the way they do things. Because it's the premise, even for this one, like, man, I could see 99% of the time absolutely not nailing the execution of it.
Yeah.
It could easily fall apart, but it didn't. It didn't with this. They did a really good job. They did their work.
Now, so as the film goes on, we start seeing moments of Lily and Mr. Wiggles.
Oh,
Mr. Wiggles. I mean, that when they mentioned Mr. Wiggles, I was like, all right, I didn't like the name, but then why she said, oh, because he wiggles inside me till he comes out. I'm like, all right, okay, I'll go by it. I'm cool
all
with
right.
Mr. Wiggles. But we get to the point where all hell breaks loose.
Right.
So there's a couple kills in this, quite a few kills, but which of the kills did you think worked really well?
Oh man, there's some good ones in here. I know Christu dies off screen, but his like little black puke thing is interesting. Carmichael gets a doozy, and you really want him to. So I feel like that one's got a nice little payoff. What about you?
Poor Gus, man. Poor Gus. He tells, remember, Carmichael, he's all, just, are you gonna make my head spin around? And lo and behold, that's the way he dies.
That's the way he dies.
And it was just like so perfectly done. Like the CGI they used for that, or whatever they used for it, looks so good, because here he is standing up, starts basically saying to our Father or prayer to, cast Mr. Wiggles out, and all of a sudden his head just turns and he goes right through the table. I'm like, holy shit. But no, they had some good kills. Like Janice's kill, like I was surprised she got killed off.
Yeah.
But I understood why, because you smacked her. You smacked Mr. Wiggles. So Mr. Wiggles is gonna get payback. The fact that she died with the necklace she was wearing that supposed to protect her and Lily.
Right.
I thought it was ironic, but
I was gonna say most of the deaths were just like that happen at the end were all ironic, like, oh, be careful what you wish for or what you say type deaths, which I think is great too.
Oh yeah, they were all around the money, but for me, it's like I wanted the guy who was the boss to get killed. I don't think he didn't get killed off. I don't think he got killed off.
No, maybe it happened off screen.
Motherfucker, I wish he would have gotten killed off.
Right.
No, but this one, it did good with the kills. I like the pacing it had to build up towards the end, and the fact that in the end you get the twist that he ends up stabbing Lily. But Mr. Wiggles got what Mr. Wiggles wanted. It was to go prime time. So Mr. Wiggles technically won the sweeps.
There you go. That's what he was after.
If you look at it. But yeah, I mean, overall, any last closing thoughts on this one?
I mean, yeah, special effects work is solid. Obviously, David Dismulchin, I believe that's how you say it, maybe. Obviously, he's the big driver here. Everyone does a great job with their performances, but clearly he's like driving it, with some fantastic acting and everything. Like his little subtleties that he does, you feel like everything he does, it seems genuine. It almost seems like he's not acting. Like this is Jack Delroy. So I think all of that really combined together. It's pretty nice. I don't know how they could have changed it. I feel like at the beginning when they're doing that narrating, kind of give into like the backstory, goes a little long.
Yeah.
Could cut that a little bit, but outside of that, I don't think there's too many flaws with it. What about you?
No, I mean, it's a found footage horror, so I mean, with
know
found
it's
footage
right
horror, it's either hit or miss. There's never in between with found footage horror. See, it's gonna be a hit, it's gonna be a miss. I think if they would have did this one differently, like your usual film, it wouldn't have worked.
No.
I think it would have struck out big time. But the fact that they chose, let's go use the found footage element, and the fact that they mentioned that early in the film that we're about to show you the tape, the last episode that was taped. So, makes you wonder like how many people were actually watching it. But at the same time, it's like, all right, so the fact that they had all this behind the scene footage kind of makes it even more better. But for me, yeah, I think it worked very well. I actually went to go see this in the movie theater just to show you the differences. Like I went with my wife, and when we left, she was like, I don't know what the hell I just finished watching. Where I was like, it's like I know where they were going. There was, I mean, don't just it has some plot holes. Like one big plot hole for me was the fact that Malin was his wife, and then when Kristoff said that the unmarried man wearing a wedding ring, you're like, so technically you're married, you're a widow, so you're not unmarried because. So that kind of a little slight nitpick, but for me, no, for me it was a good film, and the fact that it didn't need the like you're saying the body horror came at the right time.
Yeah,
the gore came at the right time. I like the fact that some of the special effects felt like it was old school special effects, like the lightning going through, like the wiring, and when she's like glowing a little bit. I like the fact that they had that feel like if you're actually watching a 70s film. But overall, yeah, it was an enjoyable film. It was one of the big hits of 2023. 2023, yeah, it's on 2024. I'm sorry. No,
yeah,
it is 2023. Wow, that year went back so fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hey, listen, it's not very often that Radar said he likes found footage, so
don't get used to it.
Yeah, highlight this one, put this one on your favorites list because it's gonna be something that a couple years from now, when Radar goes, all found footage movies suck. Wait, but there's that one that you talked about that you really liked, and it'll be right here on this channel. Until next time, this is JR Radar. Don't forget, go on Amazon, look this guy up. He has more and more books coming out. I mean, but he's gonna have about 50 books out by the time I get my first official one done.
Hey, but you'll have one out.
Well, that's true. And then I'll have to I'm never catching up. But I'll be George Martin to the Stephen King here. But till next time. So like, subscribe, share. Please.
Peace.